What's going on, you guys? It's your least favorite YouTuber, Sodium285, and to celebrate me surpassing my goal of hitting 50 subscribers, I set out a Q&A for you guys to give some questions about me. And now today I am going to answer them. So without further ado, let's begin now. I have a lot of favorite movies, but if I had to narrow it down to one single movie, it would probably be Cheaper by the Dozen, the 2003 film. I love that film so much. It's one of the funniest films I've ever seen, but it also has a lot of heart. I also enjoyed the sequel a lot too. So, I'm going to say Cheaper by the Dozen 2003. I'll be honest, I had to look this one up as it's been a really long time since I last did chemistry. Like, what, 6 years since my O levels? That was the last time I did chemistry. But from what I can remember, and from what I've researched, the two radioactive isotopes of sodium are 22Na with a half-life of 2.6019 bracket 6 years, and Na24 with a half-life of 14.9560 15 hours. I'm honestly not sure about their uses, honestly. Now, this is a really good question that I'm surprised people haven't asked me in a while. It actually goes back to the origins of what made me set up my channel. So it goes back to when I was 10 years old and I moved back to Malta and I started engaging in watching stuff online as opposed to on TV more. A lot of episodes of some of my favorite shows like Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers. And then I started checking out some YouTubers' reviews of them, like obviously the obvious, like Chris Tuckman, Jeremy Johns, John Campier, but also some smaller YouTubers like Ryan Walsh, back on his old channel Webhead, which I recommend you check out. He currently has a channel called YouTube Dominators where he helps people grow their YouTube channels so that they can take control of their lives and use content creating to create a business. And he was one of my main inspirations to start a YouTube channel of my own, even back from his Webhead days. And it actually went through a pantheon of names. I initially went for Mega Hero, but at the time I kind of dropped Power Rangers because I mean, Dementia's in Danger kind of killed a lot of my love for it. This was before I checked out the Boom Studios comics, and that reminded me of the term Megaforce, so I was like, nah, that's a bit too cheesy. But then I decided to go for Retroville, but then for not think of it. But I liked a lot of the names of the periodic table at school, so I thought Sodium is a good one, and I love swimming a lot. And 285, I actually took that from my birthday, except I added 3 to the 2. So it would have been 282, because 28th February would be my birthday, but then I added 3 to make it more. And that's how I came up with Sodium 285. Now, everyone's answer is going to be different regarding what's their favorite incarnation of the Ninja Turtles, and my personal favorite incarnation of the Ninja Turtles would be the 2003 cartoon. I think they just got it right. They really captured the essence of the Mirage comics really well, but simultaneously giving something new to make it feel fresh. But it feels like a great adaptation of the Ninja Turtles. But if I had to pick a runner-up, I would probably go for the IDW Comics version of the Ninja Turtles. That would be my runner-up. But number one, the 2003 Ninja Turtles is my favorite incarnation of the characters. Now, at the beginning of 2022, I made a video where I allowed people in the comments below to voice their unpopular opinions regarding different pop culture stuff like Marvel, Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog, Power Rangers, DC. And now that I've gone through all of the questions that I upload that came on my community tab where I announced I was going to do a Q&A, I can finally get through the few unpopular opinions and react to them. So, starting now. Now, I feel bad saying this, especially after Jason David Frank unfortunately passed away, which I actually made a whole tribute video to it. It's nothing long, but I thought I'd do one. But I would say, yeah, Tommy is a tad bit overrated. I don't think he's the most overrated Power Ranger. No, no, no. If you're familiar with me, you know who I think that is. But I would say he's the most overrated. Surprisingly, not as the Green Ranger, but as the Red Zero Ranger. A lot of people really liked him in that role, but I never really felt he fits the Red Ranger role. He's the lone wolf. So for me, Tommy works the best when he's either the Green Ranger, the White Ranger, or the Dino Thunder Black Ranger. So I didn't really care about him when he was either Zero Red or Turbo Red. As for Time Force's Mid, well, here's an even more unpopular opinion. Time Force is one of my least favorite seasons of Power Rangers. I did not like that season. I know a lot of people are saying, but it's one of the more serious seasons, and I'm like, more serious doesn't necessarily equal better. That's just the thinking of insecure dudes who feel the need to validate their continued enjoyment in the stuff they love as children. Sorry if I sounded a bit mean there, but that's the way I feel. No, my problem with Time Forces was A, the Rangers just weren't too likable, except for Lucas. Him I liked. And it was very, very, very Red Ranger centric. And if you're familiar with me, I do not like Wes. I find him annoying. I will say, I think Time Force, there was a brief period early on where I think it had the chance to become a good show in the beginning. But the time traveling aspect was completely wasted. They didn't do much with it. Rancic, I think, was an idiot as he didn't take advantage of the fact that he had a time machine, so he could have tried to conquer Earth from different time periods. And Jen didn't honestly feel like a character. She felt like a character's girlfriend, which is a shame as being the first female to lead a Power Rangers team. I think there was a lot of potential with her, but it felt completely wasted. That's my thoughts on Time Force. Sorry if you feel differently, but that's the way I feel. As for Spider Man No Way Home being overrated, I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree. If you saw my ranking of the Spider Man movies, that's my favorite Spider Man movie. Now, I would not attack anyone for saying it's overrated, as everyone is subject to their own opinion, but I just loved No Way Home so much. It concluded the trilogy in a really emotional and fantastic way, and I love No Way Home. I will say, I think from what I would rewatch more, I'd rewatch Far From Home and Homecoming more, just because of how emotionally of a wreck I was after watching No Way Home. But No Way Home, I think, is the best, with Far From Home as the second best, and Homecoming as the third best of all of the Spider Man films. Sorry if any of you disagree, but that's the way I feel. Trinity being the best Power Ranger, for me, she's definitely one of the best. And I say one of the best because I have so many favorites. It's hard to choose. That was the great thing about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They were all likable to the point where sometimes it's hard to decide who's your favorite. And that's how I feel about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. But Trini is definitely one of my favorites. I even said that I love both her and Aisha equally. So thank you for those unpopular opinions, Ghosty. And that's my reaction to them. Yeah, totally. The Snyderverse is overrated. I totally agree with you, the funny guy. And the first video I actually uploaded on this channel was actually a ranking of the Batman movies, and I put Batman v Superman as the worst Batman movie in my opinion. I thought that movie was complete garbage. And the same goes for the Snyder Cut. Now, for a lot of people, it was a major improvement over the theatrical cut of Justice League. But one thing that the theatrical cut has over the Snyder Cut, in my opinion, is that because it's only 2 hours, well, less than 2 hours, it allowed for the film to at least end before you got a chance to get bored or restless with it. And there was some entertainment. Not saying the theatrical cut was good. I do think it's really bad. I just think the Snyderverse is less watchable, especially considering how long and how incohesive the storytelling is, how it feels very all over the place, and it takes like 2 hours to finally get the plot moving forward. And There was just a bunch of fan service that I did not like, and I felt ruined the film. Now, again, this is not a cut or slack against Snyder on his part. One of the positives I can give the Snyder Cut of Justice League is that he dedicated the film to his daughter. I thought that was a very touching thing. And one credit I'll give the Snyderverse fanboys is that they at least donated to suicidal prevention, which I think is very important. I think that was very touching of them. But yeah, look, if you love the Snyderverse, great. I just don't. As for Man of Steel, I don't like it. I think there was a lot of wasted potential, and while not the worst superhero film, it's definitely the most frustrating because I saw its potential, I really do. Henry Cavill, really good casting as Superman, and his performance was really good. It's just the pacing of the story of Man of Steel was all over the place, and that's about it. I actually thought the third act battle took way too long that I got bored and restless with it, and that was actually a common trend with a lot of scenes in the Snyderverse. Again, love the Snyderverse. If you love the Snyderverse, great. I just don't, and I think it's overrated, so I agree with Funny Guy. Thank you for sending that in, Funny Guy. War Knight, these are some pretty interesting unpopular opinions, and I think I agree with a lot of them. So, your first one, even if I am a huge Spider Man fan, that doesn't mean I have to like everything about his mythos. For example, I strongly dislike Black Cat MJ. I'm talking about Mary Jane, not the MC version of Mary Jane, because I like Michelle Jones better, and Venom. Those characters do not appeal to me at all in general. I think that's understandable. I agree you don't have to like everything about the mythos because that shows that you want this character to succeed, and if you feel there's something about the character that doesn't sit right with you, then that doesn't mean you dislike the character. It's just you're defensive about it. I understand that completely. And honestly, there's stuff about the mythos that even I'm not too high on. For example, you said that you strongly dislike Black Cat, MJ, and Venom. I will admit I'm not really on the Black Cat train too much. I don't dislike Black Cat, but she doesn't interest me too much. I will say this, there have been times I feel Black Cat they've made more interesting, in particular the one in Spider-Man the Animated Series. I thought that was a very interesting version of Black Cat. And I think the reason why it ended up being that way because we got to know her as Felicia Hardy for three whole seasons before that. And I think that was genius and allowed us to connect with Black Cat more. And that relationship, how Black Cat helped Spider-Man get over Mary Jane's disappearance in season 4 was one of the highlights of that season for me. And well, I just love Spider-Man the Animated Series so much. MJ, I like MJ honestly, but I also like the Zendaya version of MJ in the MCU as well. So if you prefer her, I don't blame you. I personally prefer Zendaya's MJ over Kirsten Dunst's MJ, but I do like the original Mary Jane as well. As for Venom, I'll say this. Venom used to be one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Actually, he used to be my favorite Spider-Man villain as a kid. Mostly because of nostalgia for Spider-Man 3. But I have to say, I think there are a lot of villains that are better than Venom, such as Green Goblin, of course, Hobgoblin, Kingpin, Doctor Octopus, Mysterio, and honestly, even the Lizard. This might be obviously influenced from Spider-Man the Animated Series, but I mean, no one has put Spider-Man through hell as much as the Green Goblin has. So, for me, he's easily Spider-Man's deadliest villain and one of my favorite Marvel villains, honestly. Hobgoblin, I think, is very underrated, especially, again, Spider-Man the Animated Series. And yes, when I think Kingpin, I usually like to think of him as a Spider-Man villain as opposed to a Daredevil villain, because that's how he started out as. Heck, he was introduced in Stan Lee's run during Spider-Man No More. So yeah, I mean, I still like Venom, but I think there are better Spider-Man villains. So if he doesn't appeal to you, or any of these characters that you mentioned don't appeal to you, War Knight, that's fine. You're entitled to your own opinion. Unpopular opinion number 2. Betty Brant and Liz Allen are the perfect girlfriends to Peter Parker. I can understand where this is coming from. This is coming from Stan Lee's original run on Amazing Spider-Man, where they were the first two love interests for Betty and for Peter Parker, even before Gwen Stacy came into the picture. Betty, I'll admit, if you're talking about things in the Spider-Man mythos that you don't like too much, I never really found Betty too interesting until probably Spider-Man Far From Home, which with the Angry Rice version, I thought that was just a very likable version of Betty, but otherwise never really cared about the character. But if you love her, great. I'm not begrudging you. I do want to give her more of a shot. And I'm hoping we see Betty more in the MCU, honestly, thanks to Angry Rice. As for Liz Allen, I personally find Liz quite underrated. I've enjoyed her to some degree in almost every form of media or Spider-Man media she's been in. I enjoyed her in the original Stan Lee comics. I enjoyed her in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. I enjoyed her in Spider-Man the Animated Series as Mary Jane's best friend. I enjoyed Laura Harrier's version in Spider-Man Homecoming. Heck, I even enjoyed her on the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. I mean, if you know me, I've kind of been quite vocal lately about my unpopular opinion on the Spectacular Spider-Man. I did not like that show. But Liz was actually one of the things about the show I thought they did really well. Because one of my problems with the show, Spectacular, was that I found the vast majority of the characters to be kind of unbearable. But Liz was actually one of those few that I found very likable. And she had some great character growth. And honestly, any time Peter was on screen with her, I enjoyed it. Those were probably the best Peter Parker scenes. So despite my criticism of a Spectacular Spider-Man, I like that version of Liz a lot. I think that's actually one of the best versions of Liz Allen. So props to the writers for how they did her character in that, and props to the voice actress for doing a good job voicing her. Number 3, I think the MCU Spider-Man trilogy is easily my favorite Spider-Man and superhero trilogy ever. I 100% agree with that. If you know, Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, they're my favorite Spider-Man movies. And honestly, they make not just my favorite Spider-Man trilogy, but my favorite superhero trilogy ever, with the Wolverine trilogy of Hugh Jackman being the only comparable one. But while with the Wolverine trilogy, I think X-Men Origins Wolverine is overhated, just not great. I think it's good. The Wolverine, I think, is the most underrated comic book film ever made. I actually love that one a lot, and obviously Logan is essential. There was consistent sensationalism, if that's even a word, in the MCU Spider-Man trilogy. Homecoming was sensational. Far From Home was sensational. No Way Home was sensational. That's just my opinion. And number 4, the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon is a kids' cartoon show that is perfect for kids, not just adults. You know, even though I don't like the Spectacular Spider-Man, I agree with you. In fact, I think there's a lot of truth in that because even though they probably wanted adults to enjoy it, they obviously had kids in mind that they also need to enjoy as well, because more Spider-Man fans is a good thing, and exposing this to kids is the right way to get more Spider-Man fans, if you ask me. Not saying you can't become a fan of something when you're older, when you're a teenager or an adult, but I think kids, because I became a fan of this stuff when I was a kid, so I think that's an ideal place. So I agree with you. Honestly, I'd say the only Spider-Man cartoon that never had kids in mind as its audience and adults only was the show before it from 2003, Spider-Man the New Animated Series, which I honestly thought was the worst Spider-Man cartoon. What a dumpster fire I thought it was. Again, just my opinion. Spectacular Spider-Man, even though I did not like it, it never had to do with its tone or demographic it had in mind, because it was trying to reach out to both. I just did not like the characterization of a lot of the characters. That's just me. And War Knight continues. I prefer Spider-Man to be lighthearted because Spider-Man has always been a lighthearted superhero that goes through harsh times. I understand that. Not saying I mind the darker tone. Contrary to most people, I enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man. Both of them, actually. I loved them. Well, the first one. The second one I really like, kind of love. But I don't begrudge you, because Spider-Man is supposed to be funny, and even at his darkest, like Ultimate Spider-Man or the Amazing Spider-Man movies, there's still a sense of fun in Spider-Man there. And I can understand that completely. In fact, what some people might try and deny, the vast majority of superheroes started in a very light-hearted place before they get a bit more serious. Even Batman was like that. So honestly, I don't begrudge you. For me, they can go into a darker tone as long as there's still a sense of fun and light-hearted playfulness to Spider-Man, which I think the MCU trilogy really got right. And the Amazing Spider-Man, while going darker, remember that Spider-Man still needs to be fun. Number 6, I love the MCU Spider-Man suits that are made up of Stark tech because it's something new and different for Spider-Man. And I think it's spectacular to have suits that are more than just regular suits. You know, even I love the MCU Spider-Man suits that are made of Stark tech. I really like all three of them. Uh, I have to say, I think my favorite would actually be the one at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, the red and black one. Because, yes, it's made out of stock tech, but it was him who made it, basically using skills. It takes Spider Man to a new level, and I don't think there's nothing wrong in using more tech, even if it's from Tony Stark. Let's face it, I'm pretty sure if if he was using Oscorp tech to make the Spider Man suit, not many people would complain. And something people might not know is that in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, it was actually the wrestling company who made the iconic red and blue suit for Spider-Man for him before he added some webbing to it. I think that's something people forget. But yeah, I agree with you. I love the MCU Spider-Man suits. I think they're all spectacular, like you said. Number 7, I prefer a younger Aunt May because obviously she's the aunt, not a grandma. I 100% agree with that. I was initially taken aback by the MCU's younger version of Aunt May, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought this makes a lot more sense than the grandma-like one we're used to seeing in either the comics or other media like the Raimi trilogy. So, yeah, I totally agree with you. I prefer Marissa Tomei's Aunt May. I think that is the more ideal. And number 8, I prefer Spider Man to be a young high school kid because Spidey is the perfect kid young superhero character, especially when he's relatable to kids and teens. You know, I think. Now, I enjoy Spider Man in college. Make no mistake, again, love Spider Man the animated series. But I think it's mostly in that area, the high school aspect and the college aspect, that I enjoy Spider-Man the most. Didn't particularly find the PS4 one too interesting just because he was out of high school. Not saying it was terrible. I think there was a lot of goodness in the PS4 game, but yeah, even I prefer in high school. I love Ultimate Spider-Man. I love the MCU Spider-Man. As long as the stories are told good, for me, my favorite eras for Spider-Man are high school and university. And you're right, because he's relatable to kids and teens. I think that is the perfect superhero character, young superhero character. Honestly, I think the people who want him to be older beyond college and high school are the ones who want to say Miles is the young Spider-Man, while Peter is the adult Spider-Man. Well, you can check out what I have to say to that in my Why I Don't Like Miles Morales and Why I Love Rocky, Adam, and Aisha video if you want. And finally, number 9, I want Spider Man to be an Avenger. Me too. So do I. And something people might not know is that not only in Stan Lee's run, he had been trying to join the Fantastic Four for years, and he even looked up to Reed Richards like a mentor, kind of like what he does with Tony in the MCU before Tony passed away in Endgame. But in the Ultimate Universe, he was trying to become part of the Avengers for years and worked hard for it and just managed to become one a bit before his death. Miles only became one just like that because he was Spider Man now and he basically took credit for all of Peter's work. See why I don't like Miles? And something people might not know is my favorite Avengers comic book run, The New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis. Peter was actually a founding member of the New Avengers. So I think Peter works as being an Avenger. I think Spider-Man works as being an Avenger. I think people are just giving Miles a bit too much credit just to, I don't know, make it look like he's completely different from Peter, when for me he feels a bit too derivative and bland. So there you have it, true believers. That is my Q&A of to celebrate me surpassing 50 subscribers. So thank you for every one of you that dropped a question for me. And thank you to all of you who dropped your unpopular opinions. Those were very interesting to read. And so now I'm working on a couple more videos. Granted, I have some assignments to get ready. I just have one more, not to mention exams. And until then, I'm gonna try and also, after that, finish up my updated ranking of the MCU movies. Whether it will include Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I don't know, because I haven't seen it yet, unfortunately, which is bad of me, because Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania comes out in a month. But either way, look forward to that. Remember, trust your own judgment, and I'll see you next time. Sodium285, out.